is Kiara, and in this video I'm going to walk you through the interview I conducted with a Christian counselor who has spent many years working with troubled and at-risk youth. I'll give an interview of what I learned from each of the 6 major questions, and then I'll end with my own personal reflection on what the assignment taught me. The counselor I interviewed, I'll refer to him as Jordan, has been a Christian youth counselor for over a decade. He's a licensed clinical mental health counselor with a master's degree in counseling, plus additional training in trauma-focused CBT, motivational interviewing, and biblical counseling foundations. What stood out to me was how his path into counseling wasn't just academic, it was a calling. He talked about growing up in a church that did outreach for teens dealing with instability, and how early on he saw the impact of Christ-centered compassion. During college, he entered into a Christ shelter and realized that many kids weren't rejecting help, they were just rejecting the adults who had failed them. Through prayer, mentorship, and serving, he felt God calling him into that kind of work. He described counseling troubled youth as both his career and his ministry, and that really shaped the rest of the interview. Jordan's weekly routine is a blend of clinical work, crisis intervention, and faith-informed support. He typically sees individual counseling sessions, crisis assessments for teens in both emotional or behavioral distress, family counseling, school collaboration, and case management with social workers and foster agencies. He also shared that he intentionally sets aside time for prayer and reflection before sessions because the work is heavy and very spiritually demanding. The issue he sees most often include trauma, abuse, behavioral dysregulation, family instability, identity confusion, anxiety, depression, and sometimes substance use. He also mentioned spiritual wounds, teens who feel abandoned by God or feel unworthy of his love. He works in one-on-one settings, group sessions, family therapy, and community outreach. No week is predictable in his job because crisis can shift everything. When I asked about what he finds most rewarding, he said the best part is watching a young person begin to understand that they are deeply loved by God amidst their circumstances, not because of their behavior, but because of their identity. He shared a story about a teen who had been in and out of juvenile detention. The teen told him, "I thought God gave up on me, but you kept showing up." That moment was a turning point for Jordan's career. The teen eventually re-enrolled in school and joined a youth group. It wasn't an overnight transformation, but it was also very real. Jordan said those moments when trust begins to form and hope starts to return are what keep him going in his career. Jordan was very honest about the challenges he faces. He said the hardest parts are secondary trauma, systematic barriers, watching kids return to their unsafe environments, burnout risk, spiritual discouragement when progress feels really slow. He emphasized that working with youth is uniquely challenging because they often lack emotional vocabulary. They're heavily shaped by their family dynamics that they cannot control, and they test boundaries as a way to check their safety. To cope, he relies on prayer, scripture, supervision, healthy boundaries with his clients, peer support, and a Sabbath rest. He said that without spiritual grounding, this work becomes very overwhelming. Jordan continues growing, though, through trauma-informed care trainings, Christian counseling conferences, clinical supervision, workshops on adolescent development, reading research on youth mental health. He stays current by integrating evidence-based practices with Christian counseling literature. He said that being effective requires both clinical excellence and spiritual maturity. His advice for students was incredibly practical, especially for me. He said, serve before you study. Volunteer with youth ministries, shelters, or mentoring programs. Learn trauma-informed care very early on in your career. Develop strong boundaries with your clients, with your co-workers, with anybody you're going to be in contact with. Stay rooted in scripture. Practice reflective listening. Teens respond to authenticity, not perfection. He also recommended coursework in developmental psychology, trauma, family systems, group facilitation, cultural humility, and pastoral counseling. What he wished he knew early was that healing is slow and non-linear. You might not see progress right away, but consistency matters more than immediate results. This assignment taught me so much more than just logistics of a counseling role. Hearing Jordan's experience helped me understand the heart posture required for Christian counseling, especially with troubled youth. Here are my biggest takeaways. First, this field requires a blend of clinical skill and spiritual grounding. It's not enough to just know techniques. You have to be emotionally ready, spiritually rooted, and genuinely compassionate towards the people that you are working with. Second, trauma-informed care is essential. Almost every issue Jordan described was connected to trauma, instability, or broken relationships. Understanding trauma is not an optional choice, it's foundational. Third, consistency is ministry. Jordan talked about showing up again and again and again, even if he was tired and even when progress is slow. That reminded me that counseling is often about planting seeds, not harvesting results. Fourth, boundaries are a form of stewardship. To serve well, counselors must protect their own emotional and spiritual health. Finally, I learned that Christian counseling is deeply relational. It's about helping youth rediscover who they are, their hope, their identity, and their purpose in this life, and ultimately pointing them toward the truth that they are truly loved by God. This interview didn't just inform me academically, it shaped my understanding of what it means to serve youth with compassion, with wisdom, and with a lot of faith. It made the field feel more real, more human, and more sacred, talking to somebody who has been working in it for many years. Thank you for listening to my overview and my reflection. This assignment gave me a deeper appreciation for the calling that Christ has put on my life for counseling and the incredible impact that it can have on young lives. I'm grateful for the chance to learn from someone who has lived this work out with fullness and faithfulness and a lot of heart. And I hope you enjoyed my presentation, and I can't wait to get into this field.